Welcome to Let's Chat with Julie Lewin and the Spirit Talk series, where we delve into the realms of intuition, energy, and spiritual awakening, uncovering the wisdom that resides within each of us and the universe at large. I'm your host, Julie Lewin. Thank you for joining us. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Chat with Julie Lewin. And today I have my good friend, Stephanie Kakris, who is going to talk about the spirit of business and money. Now, let me just share a little bit about her background because it's pretty awesome. She is a success coach and intuitive business strategist. She has a master's in sports psychology and found that traditional psychology concepts taught at uni were very limited, and she failed to flourish. And in an effort to find her answer, she has devoted the last 15 years to further study of emotional healing and spiritual aspects of business. She has invested tens of thousands of dollars, and same here, me too, and hours on personal development, coaching, spiritual practices, and learning how to build a thriving business. Now she shares with her clients how she has discovered a completely new and different paradigm shift to success, and she's going to share that with us. So, Steph, let's get going. I'm so excited to do this today with you.
Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure, and I'm so excited. This is one of my favorite things to talk about because it's not something that you see many people talking about, is the energy of business, the spirit and the energy of money, because they're kind of sometimes there can be a taboo subject. You know, money is kind of thought of as being a little bit dirty or evil or non-spiritual. And in fact, it's actually quite the opposite. It's actually very spiritual. And when people can...
Energy, right?
Exactly. And when people can transform their beliefs around it and feel comfortable with attracting it and holding it, then their whole lives can be transformed. So I'm really excited about this conversation.
That's awesome, because I know when I change my inner world and my thoughts around money, and it's almost like I let the desperation go and I just come back and I find that middle energy around money, it all just flows in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's when I want to control it, it kind of stops. So the only thing that's happening different is what's going on in my head. So, yeah.
And in your heart.
And in my heart. Yes. So what have you discovered? Talk to me.
So just before I go on about that, the other thing that I want to talk about after we're going to talk about money and the energy of business, and I also want to talk about later on, so I want people to continue listening, I'm also going to talk about the nervous system's place in attracting money and successful business ventures. Because it's a piece that was missing for me for a very long time, because people do talk about energy, law of attraction, emotions, feeling good, and therefore we attract good things. But the reality is, if our nervous system and our bodies don't have the capacity for it, then we won't be able to attract it. So I'm going to talk about that later on as well. But first of all, let's talk about money, because it's such a polarizing topic. People really want to love money. They want to have money. And yet there's a lot of guilt around having money. There's a lot of guilt around and shame around people who are wealthy. You just got to look at, if people think back to like movies that they've watched, the evil person is often the rich, wealthy person. The rich people are depicted as being selfish and mean. And, for a long time, I've been unpacking my own money beliefs. I grew up with my dad saying that it was criminal that anyone should be able to earn, over a certain amount of money.
Wow.
And he would say that's criminal that they should earn that amount of money. And whilst as an adult you can say, oh, well, that's just an expression, as a child, like we take things literally, you know, our
Mm.
subconscious brain takes things literally. And so and I don't want to be a criminal.
No.
Like I want to be a good person. And a good person doesn't earn that much money. And then, of course, there's all the beliefs in the church. You know, there's a lot of sayings around money is the root of all evil. And, you know, if you're being a good-hearted person, then you'll give all your money away, you know, to charity, or, you know, you'll be very generous and all this kind of thing. And basically this builds up this shame around wanting money, around being wealthy. But then, of course, if we don't have enough money, there's base and sacral chakra issues where we just become in survival mode. And then it becomes very difficult to attract more, because we live in that fear of how are we going to pay our next bill, and how are we going to, you know, put food on the table for the family, and I need to work more. And, you know, that puts us into survival mode. And that's not really a good place for manifesting either.
No. So I know in my journey as an adult, I have had many times where I look at our bank account and we've had $3. And I'm thinking, whoa, what are we going to do? And, you know, thankfully I had parents who could help out in that moment. But what I also realized was when I get to that, and I learned something when I went on retreat, and it was it was a business retreat. And we learned about, everyone talks about the glass ceiling, right? At that retreat, I learned about the glass floor. So the glass floor needs to come up as well as the glass ceiling. And I was working on raising my glass ceiling of how much income I was bringing in, but I wasn't working on my glass floor. And I'd bring that income in, and then what would happen is a big expense, like the car really broke. And then I go, oh, that money that I put away, thank goodness I had it, but now it's going. And my floor, I'm coming back down to my glass floor. And I realized that $3 in the bank was my glass floor. And I kept coming back to that. And so my thing that I've been working on is raising my glass floor, so that that same feeling of panic of, oh my God, I've got to do something, I've got to manifest some money, comes at a much higher what's in my bank account now than previous years. So I've got, my glass floor is much higher up now when I start to think, oh, okay, I need to get some more money in. I need to, well, what's going on in my heart? What's going on in my head? Let's sort this out so it's in flow again. So yeah, have you like come across other people that have the glass floor really low?
So most people who have grown up in a household where, you know, the parents lived from paycheck to paycheck and didn't necessarily have any excess to save for the future or have that buffer, will often pick up that vibration. Like money, like any other energy, is also intergenerational. So we can have poverty energy from our grandparents, from our great grandparents as well. And this impacts the nervous system as well, because they've shown scientifically that the stress from the people who were living in fear in World War II, not necessarily to the extreme of the people who were in Auschwitz, but even the people who are in the UK where food was scarce, in Australia as well. You never really knew when you were whether you could work, same with the Great Depression. Like the stress over that period of time is actually being passed down to the children of those parents and then to their grandchildren. And so we've got all this inner issues and fear around not having enough money. And so that's why it's really important that we start small and that we build up our buffer. And I love the way that you describe it, Julie, of lifting your glass floor. So
Yeah.
one of the things that I suggest that people do is that they start a savings account, which is like a future account where that money is put aside for investment in the future, and it's the growth slash future account.
Yeah.
And even if someone can only put in $1 a week, like if they're really living, if people watching this are really living on the edge, if they can put in $1 a week and put that aside and vow not to touch it,
Yeah.
and then to just be able to see that grow. And even if people could afford a bit more, like let's just say people could afford to put $100 a week in there, that people might say, oh well, wouldn't that money be better off in my going towards my mortgage rather than a savings account?
That's my question. Yes. That was literally, you pulled it out of my head.
So in theory, it's more economical to put it into your mortgage and to save that mortgage interest, because you're going to be paying more interest on your mortgage than you are in this wealth account. But the psychology and the energy of seeing that wealth account grow rather than seeing your debt reduce helps you actually attract more money to then put into that wealth account.
So that's a gold nugget right there.
Yeah. And a lot of this type of concepts, if people wanting to read a good book on the energy of money, Dr. John Demartini is one of my favorite personal development teachers. And his book is called How to Make One Hell of a Profit and Still Go to Heaven.
Wow.
And he talks in his book about that people think that money is not spiritual and it's not religious. But he talks about it, that it is, everything is spirit. Everything has energy, including money, and there's no good or bad. It's just how you see it.
Yeah.
And that, in fact, the more money that we have, the more difference we can make in the world. And for me, that was a real key, because I grew up feeling like there was a finite amount of money to go around. So if I earned more money, I was effectively taking it from someone else who didn't have enough.
Wow.
That was what I grew up thinking or feeling.
Yeah.
And a lot of that came from my dad, and about the unfairness of the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer.
Yeah.
Right. So if I got richer, someone else was getting poorer. Well, I didn't want that. Like, I'm a nice person.
Yeah.
Still effectively be stealing money from other people.
Yeah.
But what I've since learned, and I still continue to, every time I talk about it, is one more step of embodying it, is the more I have, the more influence that I can have, the more that I can give, the more programs I can create and, make a difference in the world. And so when I reframed my wealth around the more I have, the more influence I can make, the more impact, the more difference I can make, because you can't make a difference if you're living week to week and don't know how you can pay your bills the next day.
No.
Because then all you are is caught up in your own stuff, and you just don't have any energy to give to anyone else.
Because that affects your nervous system, right? Like it affects your sleep, it affects how you think, it affects your health and well-being. If you're living week to week and you aren't putting anything aside. I remember back in the 1992, I got a job at Mount Isa Mines, and part of the job package was they had their own credit union, and you could put money into the credit union, and you wrote out all your regular bills for the year, and you gave them the list, and even if you didn't have money in there, they paid that bill for you, because they worked out how much you needed to put in every week to pay your regular bills every week. And so you just made that commitment. It came out of your pay before you even saw it. And at the end of the year, they got you to put an extra 10% than what you actually needed. And at the end of the year, you actually had no stress around paying your bills, but you had saved 10% of what you put in there. and you had savings. It was the first time, I think, in a long time that my nervous system wasn't stressed when I was in that credit union doing that thing. It
Yes.
was I haven't thought about that for forever, but that was amazing.
That's really interesting. And do you know what, Julie? I'm surprised that I've never seen a service where a bookkeeper or someone could offer that to a family. I'm sure that people do it, where, you know, they basically manage all their money and all their bills, and then they give them an amount that they can have for discretionary spending, and then the rest, and then they save, and then that person doesn't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that's the other thing about money as well, and especially with women, but also many men, is we're not taught how to budget. We're not taught how to manage the money. We're not taught how to, like when a big bill comes in, you know, a once a year insurance amount, you know, how to save for that and how to, you know, manage it, and, you know, all those different, like, it's a lot to manage a home, especially if you've got a family, but even if it's just you,
Yeah.
that's a skill. And, you know, if for people who are watching this, I recommend that you get upskilled in budgeting and managing money. There must be plenty of free online courses and things to
Yeah, I
do
think
that,
there are.
because
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
you're empowered about how to manage your money, and, you know, and you know, it's interesting about that 10%, because Dr. DeMartini reckons that most people can afford to put 10% of their income aside in savings without really noticing any difference.
Yeah, and when you put it straight away, like you don't even think about it, and you know that what's left
Yes,
you
is
have
what
to
you've got.
live on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I run a business, and we have to charge GST. I put the GST as soon as that money hits my account. I put that money, the 10%, in
Yep.
the GST account.
Yes.
I don't even think that that's my money. I don't even touch it until I have to pay my GST every quarter. But I know not everyone does that. And when I started doing that, and a friend told me about doing that, the pressure in meeting my GST commitments just went away. I don't even think about it, because I always have the money there. And it's the same with savings, right? If you can just do that consistently. And I remember back in the day, like I'm going back to the 60s. Back in the day, I'm showing my age. We had Commonwealth Bank, and we're in Australia, right? And the Commonwealth Bank was in the schools, and we took money to school every week and banked it into our passbook. And, you know, they don't do that now, but I used to look at my passbook every week and watch the money growing. And I saved for overseas holidays when I was 18. And like the holiday that I had, it cost me $3,500 at 18. That was back in the 1970s. And
Wow.
it would be worth like $25,000, $30,000 today.
Yeah.
It was a lot of money, but I saved and paid cash for everything. And I had the best time. And it was because I'd learned the savings routine, but it wasn't even just putting the money in, it was actually watching that balance grow.
Yes.
So I'm coming back to your earlier comment about that. Watching that balance grow actually fueled me. And I was able to, you know, it flooded my cells. Thank you so much for this chat today, because I had forgotten that. And I can tap back in, like we're talking about the spirit of money. I can tap back into that joy and flood my body with that same joy that I had as a kid.
Yeah.
And we're innocent as kids, right? So it's pure energy.
Yeah.
And that I'm writing that down, Steph, so keep talking.
Yeah. So
Yes.
I think it's a good opportunity to talk about the nervous system, because what people don't understand is that we're living this high pressure life in the Western world, and a lot of people are being diagnosed with neurodiversity, ADHD.
Yeah.
People are brain fog, they're exhausted, they can't focus. And even if you do have enough money, what happens is when people increase their income, they increase their expenses,
That's right.
right? And what happens is even people on $1 million a year, they're still living on the edge because they got the renovation or they upgraded it to a bigger house or whatever it is. And it's so rare to meet someone who's actually been putting money aside since they were young, live within their means, not needed to upgrade the house, the car, the renovations, the this, the that, the other, just because they've got the money sitting there.
Yeah.
And therefore their nervous system is calm.
Yeah.
So I want to credit my nervous system teacher, whose name is Raquel Dubois, and her website is raqueldubois.com. And what she taught me is, and I love this, so she showed me one of these little toys that,
Yeah.
it's a kid's toy. And what she talks about is our nervous system is genetically designed to open so that when we're really stressed like that, and
Yeah.
she had a really big one, right? So imagine a really big one. So it's
Yeah.
designed to really open when we're stressed or when we're hyper aroused, when we have a podcast interview to do or whatever it is. And then we walk away and it's designed to go back like this,
Right.
okay, into a resting state.
Yeah.
But the vast majority of people who live in the Western world live where they're either all the way fully open, and then the resting state is kind of like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they've only got like this tiny little bit to actually allow for any expansion or any more stress to come in. So,
yes.
And when I say stress, okay, what people don't understand is more money or increasing your business, even though it's good and it's something that we think we want, right? It's still stress on our nervous system because it's change, it's new, it's different, it's an up leveling.
And we have to adjust.
Yeah. And what happens is we often can't adjust because we've only got this tiny little capacity. So, we'll increase our prices or we'll open our calendar for more customers. And then what happens is we either collapse in a heap or the customers cancel and then they want refunds or something happens to sabotage it.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's the same with holding on to more money. Yeah. Okay. So we'll get the money, we'll save it, and then all of a sudden we'll get an unexpected speeding fine or the hot water system breaks or something happens and then it goes back to zero again. And we go, why can't I hold this money?
That's exactly right.
One of the keys is in nurturing and honoring our body, our physical body that we are walking around in. And I think that there's a lot of talk about the law of attraction, about feeling good, about increasing your energy, and I practiced that for such a long time. And I did have success. But what happened was I collapsed. Right. I had pretty much a nervous breakdown when I attracted a lot of success because I was really determined, because I was living life on the edge. I was always running late for things. I was rushing around. I would spend any money that came in, I would spend it on more training, more this, more that. I wasn't giving myself that buffer. I wasn't relaxing. Okay. I wasn't during the day because, for those people who, have their own business and they work from home, there's no boundaries. And even when I was, sitting in front of the telly pretending to relax, my brain was still like thinking of ideas or whatever it was. I'm not sleeping well. I'm raising 2 kids, probably not honoring that commitment and the effort and the energy that it takes to raise children.
Yes.
And I see this a lot with mothers who are business owners as well, where they're trying to burn the candle at both ends and then they wonder why they can't make more money in their business. And so my my advice to people out there is that if you want to make more money in your business, like this is where it's do less to make more. This is where that comes from.
Right.
So one thing that has really changed my life, Julie, is making a commitment to be on time to
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
right? And to actually show up a few minutes early, because I had this habit, which was absolutely a habit, like literally, if I had to leave it, if I was going out for dinner and I had to leave at 6:30, okay, I would literally do nothing from 5 o'clock until 20 past 6. And then I'd look at my watch going, I'd just be faffing around, like literally doing just maybe, cleaning up a bit, doing whatever, nothing really important. 20
Yeah.
past 6, I'd look at my watch and go, oh, better get dressed. And then I'd leave 5 minutes late, and then I'd be rushing on the car. And
Yeah.
it's just all this extra effort on my nervous system. And so any time during the day that I can actually stop and allow my nervous system to really rest,
Yeah.
and that includes doing meditation, doing your breath work, but really, rather than doing it as a task and as another to do,
Yeah.
like really imagine allowing your nervous system to rest and see it as an investment of time
Right.
rather than a waste of time, right? Because I would think, why would I stop and meditate for 20 minutes when I can write another email, or when I can read another blog post from someone to do some research or whatever it is? And I'm still guilty of it. I'm a go person.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I have committed to is that being on time. And even for our podcast interview today, I was sitting down in this chair with my computer open and everything ready like 15 minutes before.
Yeah.
Whereas 2 years ago, I would have come out here at 9:59 and sat down and like hoped that my computer would open quickly and that Zoom would run instantly.
Yeah.
And often be 2 or 3 minutes late, you know, and then, I'd be stressing.
Yeah.
And there's just no need for it.
No. And they have a name for this, that it's called a through time person or an on time person.
Mm-hmm.
And a through time person is invariably late. An on time person is invariably early. And that's how a lot of conflict can happen in relationship if one person is a through time person and the other person is an on time person. Now, my husband is an on-time person.
Same with mine.
I'm a through-time person, which it sounds like you are as well. And as we were raising the kids and we needed to be somewhere, when we're supposed to be walking out the door, I would go, well, the kitchen's not tidy. I have to wipe the benches. I have to do this. We always left the house late. And then when I started my business and I had appointments, I put in my calendar that I got reminded 10 minutes before every appointment. And I've taught myself to be on time with my business appointments. I can't say the same for my personal life, but for my business work, I am an on-time person. And I sit and I watch, and as soon as it clicks over to the time, I then ring, or I'm in Zoom and I'm waiting. And I also am invariably aware of the commitment of time, and I like to honor the chunk of time that we committed. And that feels now that I'm thinking about it, Steph, it feels the same energy when I am on time and I honor the commitment of time to the joy of watching my bank account grow. It's the same feeling that's rushing through my body.
Time and money are inextricably linked, in my opinion.
Wow. This is new for me. Like I didn't know this. And
because traditionally we exchange our time for money. If you go to work 8 hours, you get paid for 8 hours work.
That's it.
Okay. And this is where a lot of business owners trip up, because they want to charge for what they do in terms of how much time it's going to take them.
Yeah.
And they don't honor the years and years and years of training and experience and knowledge and wisdom that goes into that 1 or 2 hours of, if it's a session or whatever.
They don't also honor the thinking time that happens before the session.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And thinking time is often where the gold is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they think that, well, I'm with that client for an hour or two, so that's what I'm charging. But there's the bookkeeping, there's the marketing, there's the thinking time, there's the what else? What other hats do we put on? We wear lots of different hats, and all of the different hats that we wear actually goes into the pricing of our product.
And also the time spent emailing resources or a summary of the session.
Exactly.
And following up afterwards, that you check in with them a few days later to see how they're going.
Yeah.
But not only that, we've also got to look at what is the client's outcome from the session.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we're facilitating a life-changing outcome from a session or from a program, probably, I'm a kind of not a big fan of people promising a life-changing outcome from one session, although it can happen. Usually it's a program or it's a series of sessions. If you are going to transform that person's life, what is that worth to them?
Yeah.
And so that's another thing that we need to really consider. And then we need to be skilled at being able to convey that in our marketing and in our sales copy. And that's a real skill too. And that's something that, is worth investing and hiring someone to help you to write that and do that properly.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's where you and I have invested a lot of our money as well, in all of those areas of business.
Yeah.
So that I'm not saying we're the best at it, but we know how to do it. And we know when it's good if we hire someone to do it for us.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot involved with the money that we make in our business that doesn't always end up in our personal pocket. And so one of the things I started, I'd been in business for a long time, and then 4 years ago, Tash joined me in our business, and she set up a spreadsheet and all the incoming, and we allocated 30% to the business account. We allocated 20% to our profit account, and we got what was our income from the other 50%. So that would have been 25% each. And, that worked really well. Oh, and then there was the 10% for GST. So we had all our percentages, and we honored that spreadsheet, and just tracking all of our income in the spreadsheet. It was a bit like having our bank book passport as a kid.
Yes.
At school, where it got processed by the bank, and we paid I think I used to put 20 cents a week into my bank book, and just watching it grow. And so it's so interesting. Like, I feel like I've got threads coming together that have been like floating around in the ether, and they're coming together. So I hope our listeners are having a similar experience with their ahas about money and business and our nervous system. So what else do you want to share with us?
Well, I just thought of a journaling exercise that people could do after watching this.
Yeah.
Is to think back to a time in their lives where money was either coming easily to them, or they had that feeling of that they'd saved up for something, or that they were feeling, safe and comfortable, like financially and with safety wise, in terms of having enough.
Yeah.
And then write about that. What was going on? Who were the people around you? What was going on at that time in your life? How are you feeling? Like what? And see if they can recreate some of that feeling, and see if there are any lessons for them now, if they want to recreate that feeling, or if they want to increase their abundance for the here and now.
Yeah. And one of the other things that I do is I try to look for, not try, I do, I look for the awe and wonder within that. And if I was doing the journaling for that, I would then ask myself, and I would then look out my window like I'm doing now into space, and I go, I wonder what it would feel like to have that now. And then I would just be in like this daydream, and I would feel it physically. And when I wonder like that, not strategically, if I'm strategically wondering and feeling awe, it's not quite the same. It's a different door that we go through. But if I'm just in a daydream wondering what it would be like to have that, do you know what? It manifests. And that fills me with the awe, because I've thought it, and then there it is, right there. It's all there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
brilliant.
that's an awesome exercise.
And also to track where money is coming in, because we often focus only on the money that's going out.
Oh,
so it might be
yes.
worth just spending a couple of minutes every night or every few days and just write down where the money's coming in, and really feeling into that energy of money coming in, rather than, we generally focus our energy and our emotions on that bill that we had to pay, and etc. So what I'd also like to talk about is the energy of business.
Yeah.
Because I believe that every business has its own consciousness, if you like. And that's a word that is thrown around and, it might trigger some people, but it has its own energy. It came into the world through you. If you're the business owner, it shows you. It's a little bit like a child, or to me, it's like an entity.
Yeah.
And I believe that in order to have a successful business, that we need to talk to our business and tune in and work with it and work together with it. And I know that you've done that a lot with Arakira especially, and I'd love you to share some of your experiences with that.
Yeah.
And it actually came to you, like not like it does with most people, but I still think it's cool to hear that story.
Thanks, Steph. Yeah. So Arakira is the name of the method of the work that I've been doing for the last 40 years. So that journey started with a clairvoyant reading that I thought was a date with the devil. And that reading, it was like the number one pivotal moment of my entire life. I was 25, thinking of leaving my husband, taking my 7-month-old Tash, who's now in business with me, and forging a different life. But I knew that I didn't know if I could cope with that life either. And this clairvoyant said, well, if you do that, basically you'll have a horrible life. And I went, okay, I'm listening. And then he said, but you have this other destiny. And if you choose that one, well, your marriage will survive. Well, we've been married 42 years this year. You'll overcome the illnesses in your 30s and 40s. And I have, I'm well. And, but what I would discover is how to see inside of people's bodies. And that's what I've done. But the Arakira, the name, it was an experience where I saw symbols coming through, like the ceiling disappeared. I saw symbols coming through into my body, and I was chronically ill with migraine. It just, from 1 second to the next, I had this like a vice in my head, and then I didn't. And so that was when Arakira arrived. It told me the name. I didn't like the name. it said Akira, and I said, well, what does that mean? And I heard this, it was like the walls were speaking to me, said, well, it's the alignment of the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual bodies. And I went, surely that's not enough. It was like the walls did this big breath like that and came back in, and they went, all right then, Arakira, a palindrome. And I said, well, what's that? What's that? And they said the revolutionary alignment of the physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, auric, energy, and etheric bodies. And I went, oh, I like that. And so then I said, well, how do I spell it? And the voice in my head goes, Arikira. So I Googled it. And it was so close to the spelling of a Native American Plains people from the Pawnee tribe. I said, you can't name this after, it's too close to a tribe of people. Then the walls really, like, I was frustrating Arakira. And they said, all right, change I to double E. And so I did. And I Googled it. And there was zero. You know, it's an exciting moment when you see zero on Google. So I trademarked it, and that's why we have Arakira. It is incredibly hard for people to pronounce. It is not a word that people understand, but for me, it is, I can't change it because the energy of Arakira asked for that based on my interaction. And so that was the moment that I became aware that Arakira is not me. Arakira is a method that I am the conduit. Like, I have the key to the door, but I'm not it. And so now I'm so excited to say that I'm sharing the keys to the kingdom, if you want to use that term, with other practitioners who help with stress and trauma and mental health. And the people that they're sharing it with are going, wow, I've never experienced anything like this. So it's been a journey. And the thing that I want to share with people is, when you have an idea for a business, that idea wants to be born. And you're not the only one that idea is being seeded with. And so if you don't do it, someone else will. So it's about making a decision. Am I going to do this? And Steph, I know that you have experienced this along your journey. Sometimes we just want to give up. But whatever that thread is between your heart and that entity or the energy of the idea or the business, it won't let you. And if you can't walk away from it, you know that this is what you need to be doing. And I can't tell you how many times I wanted to give up, but it's unrelenting and it wouldn't let me give up. And in the end, I think that was my surrender moment. All right, we're doing it. And so
one of my favorite movies, where I can see the parallels here about being the chosen one. Okay, so the business has chosen us to be the conduit.
Yeah.
Is Moana. So for anyone watching this, go and watch Moana, because there's this, she's the chosen one, okay? She's the water spirit, and she's the one that needs to basically save her village. Yeah. And there's one point where she's on this little raft boat out in the ocean. There's storms, she's been battered, she's been beaten, and she's at the end of her tether, and she really doesn't want to do it. She just wants to go back to the safety of her village, and she screams to the energy of the ocean, choose someone else. I don't want to do this. And I'm like, that's me every other day. Pick someone else. Because it feels too big, it feels too hard. But then the energy of her grandmother spirit comes and gives her some wisdom and some guidance.
Yeah.
And so it's really important to be open to the signs from the universe, whether that be the triple numbers that you might see on a number plate or on the clock, feathers. What are some other really cool signs that people commonly see where you just know that you're being looked after and that you just need to keep going?
Well, for me, you've said the two things. It's the numbers. Oh, the clock. If I hear the gonging of the clock, or I hear the police siren or the fire engine or the ambo, it kind of penetrates your consciousness, and you go, oh, that's a sign for you to look at. What were your thoughts right at that moment? What were you thinking, or what were you saying? Because it's important. Like you need to remember this. And so, yeah, but feathers are my thing. And I was working with a client I was doing a podcast interview. And if you're listening to our series, you'll know which one it is. And he said something about how his sergeant saved his life. And right at that moment, a feather just came down in front of my window, and I went, that was an angel moment right there. And then a day later, I was working with another client, and at the like a pivotal moment in the conversation, a feather just came down, and I thought, wow, there's a lot of angels actually working with me right now, because they're just falling out of the sky. I don't see any birds. It's just this one feather just falling out of the sky. And I'm thinking, what's going on here? And I love it. It gives me that little burst of energy that says to me, you're on the right track, Julie, keep going. And I think that that's important as well, for us to have a sign or a symbol that is uniquely ours, and it speaks to us, so that when we're in that doubt, when we're feeling the big overwhelm of when Moana's on the raft and she says, choose someone else, when we're in that moment, that we have a sign or a symbol that when we see that, it actually settles our nervous system, a bit like the grandmother's wisdom coming in, and it settles our nervous system, pushes that ball back in, and we go, oh, okay, I can keep going. I'm on track. And yeah,
and I think as well, in terms of the nervous system, people, I just want to say to people that it's okay if you're feeling like your business isn't bringing in as much money as you'd like. It's okay to go and get some part-time work. Correct. It's not a failure to go back to get some work and to get some money in, because if that financial stress is causing your nervous system to be so expanded, you're not going to attract the money through your business anyway. Right. So give yourself a break. It's okay to give up or put it aside for a while, or try something different if you're feeling really stretched. We say, oh, never give up, never give up, never give up, and going back to work, it's like a failure or whatever. I just want to say to people, it's not a failure. You need to look after yourself, your body. Life is short. See if you can continue to do your business a little bit on the side if it's something you're really passionate about, or take a complete break and come back fresh. And the other thing I was going to say is, don't be afraid to ask your business specifically for what it is that you need. So, many people watching this would be familiar with the Conversations with God books, where, he did channeled writing.
That was Neil Donald Walsh, wasn't it?
Neil Donald Walsh, yep, where he did channeled writing, and he sat down and he would ask God a question,
and then the answer would come to him and he would write the answer down. So if you're familiar with that state, if you can get into kind of a relaxed state, write the question and then allow yourself to write what comes through without any judgment, without any thought process. Don't think about the answer, just allow your hand to write, allow the energy of your business to come through you.
Yeah.
That's a really powerful exercise as well. And Julie, you talk about the left hand, right hand. Do you want to talk about that
exactly
technique?
Where I was going to go, Steph. So back in the night, I think it was 1996, I discovered a book by Lucia Cappuccino, and it was The Power of Your Other Hand. And it's full of exercises. And what she suggested is that you write your question with your dominant hand, and then you answer the question with your non-dominant hand. And what I found to be the easiest was using felt pens, colored felt pens. And I'd write the question with one color, and then you put that down, because you might think that you know the answer, right? But you've still got the pen in your dominant hand. So I'd put that down. I would pick the non-dominant color up, and then I'd read the question again, and I would get a completely different answer. And then I'd write the answer that I got. Now, here's the thing. Our controlling mind, we've got the controller in our mind. We want to write with our non-dominant hand as well as we do with our dominant hand. And so we're being really careful. And we're trying to make it very neat and legible. But here's the thing that Lucia said. The messier your writing is with your non-dominant hand, the more connected you are to the emotion of the answer. So stop trying to control it, stop trying to be perfect, and just write and allow, like, what you're wanting is for your nervous system to be as relaxed as possible as you're writing, and it's going to get messier and messier, and that's okay. And then once you've written all of the answer with your non-dominant hand, and clearly I'm right-handed dominant, then you put that pen down and you pick your dominant pen back up, read the answer, and then you ask your next question with your dominant hand. So you're having a conversation. The way I like to talk about it is your conscious mind is having a conversation with your subconscious or your unconscious mind.
Yeah.
And we know from the work that we've done, Steph, that it's the patterns and the habits and the mindset in our subconscious mind that actually drives what we do in our conscious world. And so it's really awesome to be able to dialogue with that subconscious mind or unconscious mind. And I spent a whole year doing that.
Yeah. So when you say you spent a whole year doing that, did you do it every day or?
Exactly. I did every day. I've got
Wow.
folders filled with the evidence of that. And but I took it one step further, because my mum said, "Oh yeah, that's all right, Julie. You know, you want your mum to be proud of you, right?" She said, "I had a pen pal and we wrote letters to each other in mirror writing." I said, "What's that?" She said, "Well, you flip all the letters back to front and you start on the other side of the paper and you write in mirror writing. So to read it, you've got to put it in front of the mirror." And she said, "Why don't you give that a go?" So I did. I can read mirror writing now without
I can read and write mirror
putting
writing,
it in the mirror.
no problem. Yeah.
I did that every single day, and I channeled 365 quotes.
Wow.
And I wouldn't go to bed at night unless I did it. So that's that discipline thing again. Oh, I couldn't tell you how many times I was in bed and I go, I didn't do the thing. So I get back out, I go and sit at my desk and I'd say, I'll do one.
Yeah.
And then I go, oh, well, while I'm here, I'll just do another one. And it took me 7 months to write the 365 quotes.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And another thing that's good is if you do have trouble with the answer, is to write the question right before you go to sleep and ask the energy of your business.
Yeah.
Sleep on it, to ask it to bring you the answer tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or during while you're sleeping, and then wake up. Sometimes I know you do that, wake up with an aha moment.
I do.
But I also, before we finish, there's one thing I really want to say, and that is for business owners to be mindful of falling into the trap. A lot of people teaching business success teach it in a very masculine way, where the goal is to continually grow your business into this mega empire where it's a 7-figure business and all this stuff. And I see so many business owners just get to the point where they've got enough clients and they're ticking over really, really nicely. And before they even have a moment to let their nervous system settle into that new routine, they increase their prices significantly. Or they want to add a new program on top, or they completely change their business model so they're not selling single sessions anymore, or whatever the case may be. Now, I'm all for up leveling in our business, but I'm also for what is your goal in your life and your lifestyle. And be very careful to not, and there's this beautiful story about a fisherman in Brazil who would go out at 5 a.m. and he'd spend 2 or 3 hours fishing, just enough for his village, and he'd come back in, and then he'd spend the rest of the day, and they'd share the meal, and they'd relax for the rest of the day. And a big entrepreneur from America or somewhere came along and said to him, "Oh, you should be growing your business." And he's like, "Why?" He said, "Oh, well, you could have extra boats and you could hire them out to other people, and then you could do this, and you could, and then you could sell the fish to the other villages and da-da-da." And he said, "Why would I want to do that?" And he said, "So you can just work for 2 or 3 hours a day and then sit on the beach and enjoy your life." And he said, "But I'm already doing that. Why would I want to do this big thing?" And I think that we can very much get caught up in needing to do this big thing. And it actually, often I see it doesn't actually just not work. It actually derails their whole business. So they end up with no clients. And so for people watching this, bigger is not necessarily better. If you're getting a nice steady income, if you've got flexibility and freedom in your life, if you've got enough money to live on and a bit of extra to enjoy yourself and to save, just how about thinking about just keeping it at that? And be very mindful of business coaches. They just want to push you into this, to go from, to going from, to exponentially grow your business in a very short period of time, because there's only a very, very small portion of people that, some people can do it, but it's, in my experience, and usually spiritual people have very sensitive nervous systems. And so this is my rant for the day. I can feel myself getting ranty because it annoys me so much. I see this happen. Just have a think about that and be mindful of that.
And you know what, Steph, I'm going to be really vulnerable here. We did that exact thing 3 years ago. We did too much for our nervous systems and it all just imploded. And so we had to start again. Look, I know we were in COVID, but it actually wasn't anything to do with COVID. It was our nervous systems couldn't manage what we were doing with our business coaches. And so now we're very wary of business coaches that want us to grow our business in their timeline. And so we're now doing things in a timeline that suits our nervous systems. And it's working. And we're both happy. We have balance and we're happy and we have joy every day. So that to me is the pot of gold, right? So, Steph, what a great conversation.
One affirmation just to finish up.
Yes.
What is one of my favorite affirmations. I do have a money course that I sell, but at the moment it's kind of parked because I'm helping with our family business, which is something that I didn't expect I would be doing. But, where life takes us, sometimes we go in strange directions. So I am open to receiving money from expected and unexpected sources.
Oh, I love that. I've done
So
your
that's
course,
one of
Steph,
my
and it's
favorite affirmations.
yeah, it's awesome. And I used to do that every day.
Mhm.
I am open to receiving money from expected and unexpected sources.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me and our listeners today on this podcast. It has been so much fun.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thank you so much for tuning into this insightful episode of Let's Chat with Julie Lewin and our special guest, Stephanie Kakris. We covered a lot of topics in this episode, and we focused in on money, the energy of money in business, the nervous system, how our nervous system will impact on what we are capable of in bringing money in, and the joy of saving and what that does for your nervous system. So we hope that you found something valuable in this episode and that you can take that away and action it in your life. If you enjoyed the episode, please like and follow wherever you listen to this so it can get into the hands of those who need it most. And if you love the insights that you're hearing here and you know someone that would be a perfect guest for our podcast, or there's a topic that you want us to talk about, please share that with us as well. Thank you for listening, and remember, the journey of self-discovery and growth doesn't stop here on the airwaves. It's a continuous journey. So until next time, may you find courage, peace, and magic in your unique journey. See ya.